Hi, and welcome to The Literary Sipper. I'm Amber Vitti Hill, your host, and today we're going to talk about 3 of the best modern love poems, in my opinion anyway. It's February, and for those of you who celebrate love on the 14th, I thought this might be a good one for you. But even if you don't like the commercialism of Valentine's Day, it is a good day to read a poem. It is a good day to celebrate poetry. And there are so many romantic poems out there in the world, but we tend to keep regurgitating, for lack of a better word, the same classic poets over and over and over again. And there's nothing wrong with them. Of course, I love them. I love poets like E. E. Cummings and Pablo Neruda, Christina Rossetti, Edna St. Vincent Millay, Sappho, Shakespeare, Elizabeth Barrett Browning, and countless others. They all come to mind. And I want to reiterate the fact that poetry is a living, breathing thing, and that every generation, every decade has their poets and the poets who are speaking about love. And love can encompass a million different things. I would say that Mary Oliver's devotional poems to nature are a love poem to the world. And I think that it's important for you to see that poetry isn't some archaic notion of language, but it's constantly being modified and constantly being stripping away the artifice of language to its root, its core emotional self. And that's the point of love, and that's the point of poetry, to lay bare our vulnerabilities to another person. And as we head into February, I was thinking about gifts for your Valentine, and whether that's a friend, a gift to yourself, a gift to a loved one, a gift to a child. And a poem is a great gift. And I encourage you to write your own. And if that feels a little too vulnerable or a little too woo-woo or a little too scary for you, then look for one that speaks to you and write out a line from it, or write out the whole thing and frame it. Draw pictures around it, doodle it, put it on a magnet. But in your selection, make it be from you to that other person. And it's a way to sort of move away from the Hallmark card and into something a little more elevated. And I, of course, encourage you to be creative. I, of course, encourage you to write a poem yourself, write a letter yourself. And in that way, poems can be silly and sweet and rhyme and all of the things. They don't have to be Pulitzer Prize-winning pieces of literature. They can just be from your heart. And that thing, I promise you, will be the thing that your partner, your loved one keeps. The chocolate won't keep, but the poem will keep. So for today's episode, I thought I would share with you 3 poems that I find particularly modern and prescient and magical. And even though I say the word modern, one of them was written before 2002, so it's not quite modern anymore, over 25 years old. But at the same time, it's not from the 19th century. And so the language itself feels more modern and shares with it that contemporary notion of tone and voice. And it is up to us to keep our art current and to keep our tastes current and to be curious, not just about the voices that are out there being published, but about all of the voices around us. It is wonderful to go see classical works of art at the Metropolitan, but it's even more wonderful to go to a local gallery and see who's making art right now in this moment, who is making art, because we're going to need them more than ever as we navigate an uncertain landscape. So we're going to start with a poem called Filling Spice Jars as Your Wife by Kai Kagan. And it was published in Poetry Magazine in 2021. And it's the longest of the 3 poems, so you'll forgive me the time I'm spending on this with you, but I do think every word matters, and I do think it is a beautiful poem. And I would just allow yourself to be taken away by the images themselves. Filling Spice Jars as Your Wife. It seems like all my poems after this will be different. They will hold a different weight, like how the weight of my heart has shifted into indistinguishable float, into lifting cloud, into weightless flight tonight. As the rain gently falls on the summer-heated tin roof, the din of casual raindrops and warm low lights glowing, and wind blowing through the house. We have all our doors and windows open. We have all our doors and windows open, and I am pouring spices into glass jars. Coriander, cinnamon, cumin, ground sage. And it's hard to describe this moment in the confines of a page. Tiny hills of vibrant color and intoxicating fragrance. And you hear the cadence of my heart from the kitchen, where you build the perfect fitting slip-in shelves for our spices over the stove. Match the colors. Match my colors to yours. I have all my doors and windows open to you. I have all my doors and windows open to you, and you have come all the way inside, sat down at the table of my deepest desires, and lit a fire to warm us both, the wind blowing through the house, the rain gently giving way to turmeric sunrise. And you, darling, you are my wife. You are my wife, and it's like I've been waiting my whole life to say those words, and I feel held in a way I have never felt before. To look down at my fingers dusted with ginger and thyme and see the gold of my wedding band glint and shine in the warm low light glow. I am yours and you are mine, promised on Zoom in our garden of giant zinnia and hummingbird vines, sung out in the morning song of bluebirds, this union that ripples love out to the world and infin back into us again. Love in the fine powder of these spices, ground up essence of oregano and basil. I see our love in every atom suddenly, and every cell in me finally exhales, and perhaps that is the wind. Perhaps that is the wind blowing through the house, this release of eternal searching and finding you there, calling me your forever, naming me your always, to have and to hold. Till death do we part and start all over again, looking only for each other's hearts, taking my life in your hands eternal, marrying me to the heavens, latching me to the star trail of your white dress, and this orbital dance, this lift and spin, this knowing from within that all my poems after this will be different because you are my wife. It is a stunningly written poem as well, and I suggest that you look at it, and I will link all the poems and maybe a couple other ones down in the description box for you to use as you want. But if you even recopied 3 of those lines and put them in a card or put them on a piece of paper, your loved one would say thank you. The next poem I'm going to read is called A Poem for My Love, and it's much shorter than the one I just read. But it is by June Jordan, who passed away in 2002. But this poem was found in a collection of poetry that was published in 2005, so published posthumously. The poem is called Directed by Desire, the collected poems of June Jordan. I'm not quite sure when the original was published. I haven't been able to figure that out yet. But in any case, it's a short one, but a magical, vivid one anyway. Poem for my love. How do we come to be here next to each other in the night? Where are the stars that show us to our love inevitable? Outside, the leaves flame, usual in darkness, and the rain falls cool and blessed on the holy flesh. The black men waiting on the corner for a womanly mirage. I am amazed by peace. It is this possibility of you asleep and breathing in the quiet air. One thing I love about this poem is there's no punctuation, and it just does have that memory or connection to me for E. E. Cummings, and it feels very much like that, just this glimpse of dreamlike image. But the feeling of sleeping next to the person and the peace that you can witness in their sleep when the daytime might be wrought with other anxieties. It's a beautiful poem, and I highly encourage you to read it. The last one I'm going to read to you today is called The Hush of the Very Good by Todd Boss, and it is from 2007. So again, I'm not doing poems that are published in 2025, but I am doing relatively modern love poems today. The Hush of the Very Good. You can tell by how he lists to let her kiss him that the getting as he gets it is good. It's good in the sweetly salty, deeply thirsty way that a sea-fogged rain is good after a summer-long bout of inland drought. And you know it when you see it, don't you? How it drenches what's dry, how's the heaving of its quenches. There is a grassy inlet where your ocean meets your land, a slip that needs a certain kind of vessel, and when that shapely skiff skims in at last, trimmed bright, mast lightly flagging left and right, Then the long, lush reeds of your longing part, and soft against the hull of that bent wood almost imperceptibly brushes a luscious hush. The heart heeds helplessly the hush of the very good. And that is a poem that is meant to be read out loud. All of the consonants have a part to play. The alliteration and the inside slant rhymes and all of the words shushing. You can almost hear it. You don't even need to know that the words are, but you can hear it in there, the quietness and the somewhat sexiness of this poem. So I hope you celebrate Valentine's Day in whatever way is right for you, whether that's a girls' night, whether that's a quiet night at home, whether that is going out to the fanciest restaurant. But I would encourage you to take a poem, to write a poem, and to find out how deep your love is. I'll talk to you next week. Thanks for listening to The Literary Sipper. I hope you enjoyed this episode and learned something new. If you did, please subscribe and leave a rating and review if you're feeling especially generous. Until next time, keep reading, keep writing, and keep putting your voice in the world. It's waiting for you.